Hello, everyone. My name is Samuel J. Price, known as the Crypto Lifer, and every Wednesday night we do the Price Report. In the Price Report, I interview someone from around the blockchain, someone that is a crypto lifer, that has dedicated their life to crypto in some way, shape, or form. They may have a following on Twitter. They may have a following on TikTok. They may be on YouTube. They may even make music. You never know who you're going to see on the channel. This person has been on Around the Blockchain with me a few times. We've shared the screen. You also may have seen me and him maybe on Instagram or on Twitter. We were just in Miami together. And so without further ado, I have to introduce the amazing, the creative, the innovative Cassius Cuvée, man. Thank you so much for coming on to the show, man. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Crypto Lifer. I love it.
Yeah, so how you been, man? Where are you living right now? Where are you from? What are you doing? Tell us a little bit about how you got into cryptocurrency. Everyone has a different story, and I love the uniqueness of everyone's path into cryptocurrency.
Well, I'm glad you had me on, man. I'm from Oakland, California. Just so people know, me and my man Lifer here, we kicked it hard in Miami. Always been a good vibe, man. I appreciate you having me on the show. So first of all, I just want to say that. I got into crypto hard in 2021. It was like a fish to water. Just a quick, brief background. Started trading stocks in 2020, like many other people after the COVID lockdown. And me being me, I'm an artist. I'm a recording artist. And I just can't help it. Like whenever I really feel something, I usually make a music about it, make a song about it. I ended up making a song called Spat Dream that went viral, got me on CNBC. It was on the cover of the Wall Street Journal, and it was about the SPAC market, which in some ways has similarity to crypto in the sense that it's an opportunity for retail investors to kind of get in on the ground floor. Now, at this point in time, the song was released, the music video was released in, the day after the Super Bowl in 2021, or it was released the weekend of the Super Bowl, and then went viral over the weekend. And everyone was like, you should make an NFT. You should make an NFT, right? This is February of 2021. I was like, what the hell is an NFT, right? I didn't know that correlated with Bitcoin or anything. I'd heard of Bitcoin, of course. I went to this little NFT, little seminar thing. There's a few of us in there, and someone finally, for the first time, explained blockchain technology to me. And you had me at hello. And then why NFTs are, incorporated with that, a non-fungible token, right? And so once I understood that, I'm sure most of your audience knows what that is. Once I understood it, I was like, where have you been all my life? And, and I've really pretty much never looked back since. I went to the Bitcoin conference that year, met a bunch of people there because I didn't know anybody out here in Oakland who was into crypto or anything blockchain related. And that's where I met folks. And I've just been cultivating relationships ever since then, and always going to the In Real Life events. I have a song called In Real Life where I'm videotaping at NFT LA and Bitcoin Miami. And everybody I say in the song is who you see in the video. And it's just about crypto always being a vibe in person.
That's amazing. One thing I want to ask you too, do you have a favorite coin? Just thinking, I'm curious to see. I wonder what he likes. Like, is there something that you like to stack? Is there a coin you like to DCA into? Let me know.
I absolutely do. Now, anybody who follows me closely knows that my coin is Algorand. And I think it's probably one of the best, like the smartest blockchains, computer scientists. If you know me, I really rock with the nerds. You know what I mean? I like to get in there in the details, and the tech kind of boring sometimes. You know what I mean? But if you ever used Algorand, you see it's fast, cheap, and easy. And I actually have a song coming out called Just Pay Me in .algo featuring AJ Writes Crypto. But you'll be on the lookout for that soon.
I saw a clip of that track. That track was hot, man.
We're waiting for the right time to release the music video.
Yeah, I got excited. You gave me a little behind the scenes at the Airbnb the other day. That's really cool. This is awesome, man. People gotta get to know your vibe, get to know where you're from. Everyone follow him on Twitter and Instagram, Cassius Cuvée, at Cassius Cuvée. You're gonna see he is posting all the time. Like he just posted before this to tell people about the interview. The man is on point. He understands how to connect to the audience. He understands how to say what he wants. And he's not afraid. And that's what I love. People that don't live in fear. It's a fake emotion acting real. And that brings me to, what's happening in the news today, which is, the fear of the debt ceiling. Everyone's freaking out over the debt ceiling. What's going to happen? Are they going to actually raise the debt ceiling? Are they going to default on the debt? Are all the stocks going to go down? Are 8 million people going to lose their jobs is what they're saying. Janet Yellen's chilling. Joe Biden is saying it's all good. No one's really acting like we will default. What's your take on this idea? What's happening with Janet Yellen, with Joe Biden? And you don't have to get too political by all means. I don't expect you to go either way. I just want to hear your take on, what's happening with the debt ceiling, how you feel about it. Do you talk to anyone in Oakland, anyone in your local area? And, just kind of want to know what it's like for you dealing with this situation. And what do you think is going to happen?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, I don't think that most folks pay close attention to it. Like, if you're not in finance or politics, I think most people are not paying attention to it. You know, I remember the first time I heard about the debt ceiling was, I don't know, probably 2008, but like before that, you know, it's like, whatever. But that was only because I was like involved with politics, right? So now I don't think that most of the folks, because I talk to a lot of people outside of crypto, outside of finance, who I'm constantly educating about how you can, you know, set up your life correctly for, you know, basically teach financial literacy. So when it comes to something like the debt ceiling fight, unfortunately, I think it's one of those things. It's mostly a political football. Over the years, you know, always swings back and forth. You know, people can use it, and people in Congress, I should say, can kind of use it to try to gain leverage, if you will. I think as far as market sentiment, like the inside baseball folks, I watch CNBC every day. I watch channels like yours every day on crypto and YouTube. And I think that the sentiment is highly, most people think they're going to find a solution, right? We can nitpick over the little things here, but when you look at what the markets are doing, they're not freaking out maybe as much as you thought they should be freaking out, right? And I think perhaps that sets us up for something bigger if it doesn't get solved, right? A bigger drop if it's a surprise. But I think a lot of people they're like, oh, you know, they'll figure it out. They always figure it out. Even if they kick the can down the road for another year, there's always some solution to get us past this moment in time. And I fall into that camp as well, right? You know, I think that they'll get it worked out one way or another, and it will be kind of a forgotten memory. We'll be on to the next issue of what we think is going to drive the markets.
Yeah, it brings me to kind of what I always look at is how they like to manipulate retail. You know, before I got into crypto, you know, actually technical analysis, you know, I was easily swayed by my emotions. You know, I could read an article and be like, oh my gosh, like, and I would sell in fear and do all sorts of things. That's why I love technical analysis. It grounds you, takes away the emotions. You can kind of see, well, that's a lower low, that's a higher low, or that's a support region. And you can kind of focus on things that you normally wouldn't have realized matter, right? Otherwise, you would have been swaying with the wind. I'm looking at it as this. Every time the elite, which is basically the people that are making this decision, right? Every time they can get the retail and the masses to be on uneasy, they can kind of sway them in the way they want, right? So maybe they want lower prices so they could kind of get people to panic sell, you know, and then they could kind of scoop things up at the low. So I believe even if they knew exactly what they were going to do, they would play it and placate to all the news agencies and act like they were uneasy, because never let a good, you know, never let a good controversy go to waste, right? Always take control of the masses. And I think that's what they're doing here. They're just kind of playing games. So I'm with you on the political football. They're just kind of going back and forth here, 2-point conversion, you know, trying to make it seem like they don't know what's going on. But, and we also know their greed. We know that they've promised people, certain people have run and said, I'm going to put it in a bike lane. I'm going to redo the police station, right? And if they don't raise the debt ceiling, they're not going to get that money, and they're not going to be able to get re-elected by their constituents. So everyone in there is sitting there looking at their job and their position and saying, hey, like, so if they don't raise the debt ceiling, it's going to be a detriment to them all. So I believe it's something they're definitely going to do no matter what. And if you look at history, they always do. You know what I'm saying? I would be betting against history if I were to think that they were just going to have a stalemate that lasted till God knows when, right? You know, it's only kind of been happening only really one time. So, you know, you kind of inevitably do. However, with the stock market holding up, it kind of gives more, like if the stock market was crashing, it would seem more urgent, right? That they get the job done, but it's kind of holding up, not so bad. So, you know, anyways, I mean, that's how I feel about that topic right there. Yeah. One thing I want to use this as it's almost like, you know, collateral for the idea that I know I'm going to be able to bank. And the reason I'm saying that is if they raise the debt ceiling, they're going to have to print money, right? Because there's going to have to be more money. They're going to have to say, well, and where are they going to get the money? And when they print money, we know what happens. The dollar usually goes down more. Bitcoin usually goes up. S&P raises up. Today we had a pretty nasty crash for Bitcoin. Little, you know, not too bad, but a little bit of a hard dip down to the low 26,000 area. But I mean, it was expected by some TA. We were in a bear flag. That's why I always say, everyone, look at the charts and I'll show you the news. You know, you'll watch the charts. Last night or this morning even, I woke up, did an update for my trading group. Descending triangle, they break down like 80 to 90% of the time. By the time I went on the live stream, the descending triangle had dumped. So, I love technical analysis for that reason. Keeps you level-headed, keeps you off your emotions, and lets you see things with a high probability of what's likely going to happen before they actually happen, you know.
That it definitely removes your emotion. I don't post tech TA just for folks watching. I don't usually post TA or anything like that, but I do watch it and study it. I watch channels like yours and study it.
No, just hanging around with you, man. I could tell you're a well-balanced individual that is not shy. You're open-minded. You know what I mean? If you see something numerous times, you're going to actually pay attention to it. That's what I loved about you. I said, man, I always look at someone, I was like, would you have them on a deserted island? And like, if I had to be on a deserted island and I needed to pick a crew, you'd definitely be part of the crew, man. You'd be looking for food. You'd be making shelter. You wouldn't be staring at me like, what are we going to do? You know, we'd both go our separate ways. We reconvene and we'd be able to survive. You know what I mean? And
100%. I agree. Yeah. I'd be on there with you too, my brother.
You're a survivor, man. I love it. I love it. Next topic that I want to talk about is Ethereum. You know, as Ethereum got closer to, you know, the the Chappelle update, right? Which makes me think of Dave Chappelle for some reason every time I think
of course.
But the Dave Chappelle update. But, you know, every time we got closer to the update, and, you know, one thing that kind of got me with Ethereum was, you know, the lock staking. Like, everyone wasn't able to take their Ethereum out, and everyone was wondering, when they undo the locking, is there just going to be a massive sell-off? And I thought, you know, what did you think was going to happen before that? I don't know if you were watching that or paying attention. What do you think was going to happen to Ethereum when everyone was kind of freaking out? There was a lot of fear out there. Do you hold Ethereum? Have you ever staked Ethereum? Is that something that you would do?
So, yeah, a couple parts to your question. First of all, I was more in the camp of there was a good probability, not a guarantee, but a good probability that there'd be a sell-off because those folks have been locked up for a long period of time. Surprisingly, and like in a positive way, I think Ethereum held up pretty well. I think that was a good sign. A lot of its market timing, right? Ethereum was down relative to when a lot of folks staked it. So maybe it'd make less sense to sell it now, right? So that maybe has to do with it as well. But I didn't stake it. I didn't stake my Ethereum. I think at the time you had to have 20 ETH to stake it. Unfortunately, just so you guys know a little bit of my background, I had my Ethereum, well, most of it, at least in Celsius. So that got me. So, you know, that's a whole nother conversation for another day.
Sorry to hear that.
So I don't have a lot of ETH right now, but also as just kind of an investor, ETH, the larger cap coins like ETH and Bitcoin, I don't hold as much of it as far as looking for returns now that we're at the bottom of, you know, at this lower end of the market. I'm trying to look for smaller cap items to try to make bigger gains. So I don't hold too much of it. Obviously, you need ETH to transact, and I don't think ETH is going to die anytime soon, but I don't think it's the best computer science, right? I think there's faster and better blockchains. But this upgrade was important, and the fact that it moved to proof of stake, I think, kind of gives a little more credibility to proof of stake in general. You know, that's a big deal to move from proof of work to proof of stake. I mean, especially if you're like the second biggest blockchain, the biggest smart contract blockchain. So I think long term, it kind of shows more the value of like Web3 type of applications, Web3 type of blockchains, and why this is moving towards the future proof of stake, not just for the energy usage, but for just the speed of the technology. I think that's a bigger deal, more so than just the value of ETH and what would happen if you staked it or didn't stake it.
It's funny. I kind of play, you know, the villain or the contrarian because, you know, I keep 16 ETH. That's something like that. I was going for the 32 to stake, and I never ended up making it there. I used a lot of it actually in some like trying to get into some pre-sales and stuff like that actually got burned towards the end of the 2021 rally. But, you know, I look at ETH, and I'm like you. I'm a numbers guy. I like Algorand. I got into Algorand at 30 cents, wrote it up to $3, sold about half, and still keep a boatload of it. And you know, buy into it here and there. I see it every time I go to a Celtics game. They run the Algorand ads up on the screen.
Oh, they do? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. They run.
Because they're in Boston, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Boston-based company. Yeah. So they bought a bunch of digital ad space. So every Celtics game I've been to about 5 or 6 of them in this last season. And it's funny because I'll be sitting there and I'll see it, and there'll be like a random person next to me, and I'll be like, hey, man, like, you know, that's an easy 1020X. And they have no idea. They have no idea what I'm talking about. Like, they have no clue what I'm talking about. And that's when you know you're on an investment. You know, that old 1920 saying is like, sell when like the guy shining your shoes is telling you to buy a stock. Or if you're in the cab and the cabbie turns around, you should be buying some Algorand. You're like, oh, time to sell, right? But nobody has a clue. Like, the ads are in their face and they have no idea what's going on, right? So, you know, I think you're intelligent to be into Algorand. It does have a pretty big market cap. I think we can get to $5, maybe $6 though in the next big run, and we can break through that.
So big is a relative statement. I think that's a regular statement. I think compared to, for example, Avalanche, who's got like a $5 billion, and Algorand's got like a $1 billion, maybe like slightly lower than that right at this exact moment. It's kind of like for layer ones, right? Like where we're comparing layer. I think of the good layer ones, it's relatively low market cap. I like right. There's also other projects that have lower market caps, whether it be AGIX or other things, right? Like There's definitely projects with lower market caps, but for the good layer ones, I think it's relatively lower.
Yeah, for a substantial project with a guy that created, I think he created like zero fault tolerance. Like
Look
some of the things that
Silvio McCallie is who you're talking about. So Silvio McCallie was the head of cryptography.
Break it down.
Yeah, so Silvio McCallie was the head of cryptography at MIT. He invented zero knowledge proofs. Okay, look it up, right? Okay, the cryptography that we use today on all the Web 2 stuff and security and everything, like he invented that technology, like starting back in like the 80s. Okay, so this guy's a pioneer in cryptography. He's like very well known. He's Italian. He's very well known in Italy in computer science, and he's won the Turing Awards. It's kind of like the Nobel Prize for computer science. This is not a crypto bro. You get what I'm saying? And that's why, when the CNBC folks, the mainstream media, they try to act like, they try to talk about us like we're just some internet goofballs or whatever. And it's like some of the smartest computer scientists in the world are working on blockchain technology, whether it's Algorand or some other one. Like he's a serious person. Like, you know what I mean? He wouldn't be dedicating his life to this if it was a meme coin. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's not a pump and dump scheme. It's like... So that's why I think it's a more long-term play. If it's not Algorand, it's something, but overall blockchain technology is like a serious technology that I know we're in the low, I call it the lull market right now, rather than bull market or bear market. It's like a lull market. And, people are looking for some fun. I get it. One of the things I do is I like to bring some fun to the space, right? I mean, I'm very serious about the investing. I'm very serious about the technology, but as an artist, I like to have some fun with this stuff, right? You know what I mean? Like, we're in it, to make money and everything like that. I'm interested in the tech, but like, why can't we have some fun along the way? So that's what I do, even though I'm still interested in like a boring project.
Yeah, I mean, it'll take its time. Things that are substantial don't happen overnight, right? Like Rome wasn't built in a day, Back to ETH is like, I always worry about ETH because it doesn't have a circulating, like there's no actual supply. Like, it doesn't have a finite supply. Like Bitcoin, 21 million. And then I know how many, Ethereum is like, it's deflationary, they say, because more is getting used. And it is the most developed blockchain in the world. Like, so that's what everyone kind of combats me when I talk about why I'm not a huge fan of Ethereum. And then I also say to everyone, if you really like Ethereum, like it's your love, it's the law of the land for you. It's the end all. Then why don't you just sell half of your ETH and buy Matic or Optimism or Arbitrum or get into a layer two that's going to make more money and service customers better. Like recently, I was getting into Ben token, and it's on Mex Global, and it's on Uniswap, and you're gonna pay like, I don't know, $20 for every like few $100 you buy of the token, or you could just trade it free on Mex Global. So I'm like, why would I use Uniswap and Ethereum? You know what I mean? I would go find another. And there was people saying that you could buy Pepe on Algorand. I don't know if that was finally true. I never figured it out, but there was some like,
there's a way to do it. Yeah, with a pegging or something like that, where there is a way to do it. They've been talking about it a lot. I never bought it on there, but there's a way of going about it.
Yeah, that was interesting for me. So yeah, this it's interesting to see that even though we're getting new upgrades, even though new things are happening, people are sticking to their Ethereum. They're not going to sell it. I believe they're long term, just like you are with Algorand. But again, 10,000, 12,000, like. How high do you think Ethereum can get in the next bull run? Like, if you've ever given it some thought, I'm not sure. It might be putting you on the spot.
I've given it some thought. I've given it a lot of thought. I don't think that's outside of the realm of possibility. For sure. Again, it's like relative though. Like let me put it to you this way: if Ethereum went to 10,000, imagine how high some of the other altcoins would go relative, right? I can't not think of it that way, right? I just can't not. Like, especially because Ethereum is an altcoin, right? If we say just so for folks watching, generally the lexicon is Bitcoin and everything else we consider an altcoin, right? So if Ethereum is the top dog of the altcoins, but it's got a $500 billion market cap or maybe a $250 billion market cap, like it's harder to move that faster and higher than it is something that's got a $100 million market cap or even a $1 billion market cap, right? So that's just kind of as an investor, someone who follows markets every day, we basically are in tune with that.
I like what you're saying too, because with financial literacy, right? Like that's one of the basic things you begin to learn. You get in, you go to CoinMarketCap, you start learning circulating supply, market cap. And like you say, the average person who's not paying attention to the debt ceiling, any of this stuff, like they don't realize, me and you were like, oh, that's got a $100 million market cap. That's got a $1 billion market cap. I could 20X that. I could 30X that. And start making some real world calculations that make sense to our investments, and it's not, you don't have to be rocket science, but you have to start dedicating time and focus into these realms to be able to kind of put those things together. And I like what you're doing through your music. people might just hear your music, but then they actually might watch you here on this channel. Then they might go into some more financial literacy, and like you're leading them away from just, you know, the mundane, regular lifestyle that they may have been living in, thinking that nothing good's going to happen or there's not that much opportunity. And through your music, you're saying, no, like, look, listen, like, look what I did with my life, number one. Look, I got on CNBC, Wall Street Journal, just because I had an idea and I wanted to change the way I was living, or, you know, just create opportunity for myself. And then everyone can listen to your music and get inspired and be like, wait, he's talking about what? What is this song? Algorand? You know, who knows how many people might end up getting into Algorand or another coin or figuring out what we're talking about here because they were able to find your music. And so through music, you slowly can bring people in with something they already like, right? That's the first way to do things, right? You get them interested in something that they're already interested in, which is hip hop, rap music. And then you educate them through your lyrics, which I love your lyrics, man. They're spot on. Like, they're well said, they're clear. You don't go 1,000 miles a minute so people can't hear what you're saying. And I think you realize that you're teaching while you're rapping in a way. And all the songs that I've heard you done, I even say a lot of the things back in my head a lot because I'm like, it's so concise. It's given in a very clear, well-spoken manner, man. So I just want to say shout out to you for doing that, because that's how we're going to really get adoption going, is people like you, like creative people on the outskirts of the realms of thought. Like, you know, I do my live show. I'm not putting it down, but it's like, it's cool that you're making another form, another medium to bring people into cryptocurrency. I find that that's why I really wanted to have you on the show, you know, because I knew that through your music, people could find my channel. Through my channel, people can find your music, and together we can help each other grow. And that's the point, man. And the second I met you, I was like, wow, a positive, uplifting individual. I think I see you smile every minute, every time I'm with you. Like you have a constant smile.
Well, we got to, man. Listen,
you know, I've
man,
never seen you looking at your phone like with an upset face, man. You were always uplifting with the gift. So I really appreciate you
listen,
coming
I
on
lost
live.
money like everybody else in 2022, right? My investments went down. Like I said, Celsius took a lot of money from me, and it sucks, right? You know, I've done my fair share of being upset, you know, but like, you know, when we're going to go on camera and we're going to try to talk about, we have 24 hours a day. We can spend time talking about the good things and highlight the positive things and where things are moving in the direction moving forward, or we can complain and complain. I'm just not the complainer type. I get that there are certain things that it's warranted to complain about, right? We need to call out certain problems that need to be fixed and changed. Just for me, Cassius Cuvée, my angle is a little bit different. We try to bring some fun to the space and always talk about the future, where we're going. That's just kind of me. That's just how I do things.
And with that, with the future, talking about the future, let's jump into Zimbabwe. You know, they're selling 14 million gold-backed digital tokens in their first issue, right? So despite the IMF, you know, IMF's always trying to be the daddy, like, you shouldn't be doing this, because they don't want free money. You know, I go back, you know, a little history lesson to when we first got into basically money here in America, right? We had our own form of money, which I didn't even know about this till 4 years ago, called colonial script. And you could use silver too. You could use gold, and colonial script was like a script that the colonials made, and there was a certain amount of it. And, you know, it had a lower circulation, so it was valuable, and you could basically do all types of, you know, you could buy from a farmer could sell goods. And eventually when the central banks found out that we were going to have our own form of currency, not attached to the Bank of England and their stronghold over Europe, they freaked out. Like, you know, and they sent their shills in, and they forced us to take their banks, and eventually they kept writing bills in, and they kept actually sending politicians in with these, you know, that they probably were bought and paid for even back then, and were trying to force us into the first bank of the United States. Even the way they made the bank was insane. It was like they ended up owning most of it, and they made us pay them the debt towards it. It was just the whole makeup. I could break it down for an hour, but it's absolutely insane when you really look at how we were basically financially imprisoned. So we won the Revolutionary War, but they were able to capture us back in. I mean, James Garfield tried to fight it. People didn't even realize that Abraham Lincoln had a greenback dollar that you could spend up until 1971 that lasted a pretty long time. You know, it just slowly fell out of you know, popular demand and circulation, but he did make another dollar that was, you know, we've been trying to find our own form of money for a long time, and now Bitcoin comes up, right? And so when you see these little companies like Zimbabwe doing this stuff with gold and basically making gold, you know, issuing gold currency and getting away from the central banks, immediately it's a red flag for the IMF, right? They're like, oh. But these are the people that, you know, the banking system didn't even care about, right? Like, and that's what we love about cryptocurrency. It unbanks the unbanked. But 3 billion people of the billions of people on the earth, like, they don't have a social security number. They don't have IDs. Like, the banks don't even consider them, like, you know, bankable people that they could even use in the banking system. Like, they're just kind of like a number, and it's kind of sad.
And there's billions of folks like that, right? This is not like just one little corner of the globe. It's like almost like, it's like half of the globe, you know? And that's why blockchain technology, specifically like digital identification, can help in a lot of places that, you know, because you get access to healthcare, food, and water, like just proving on a blockchain that you are you, right? You are part of the economic system. You know, you're not like someone who just, they can just throw away, you know. That's something that you can claim your own ID is what it really means, right? And that's not even money, right? That's just digital ID. And then additionally that with the decentralized finance aspect of it, you know, cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, Bitcoin, whatever coin it is going to give folks the opportunity to participate. I mean, ultimately, that's what I think it is. It's choice, right? Do I think the centralized system is going to die and go away and Bitcoin's going to take over? No, I don't. Just like, you know, first we had radio, and then we had TV, then we had the internet, you know, and then we had social media, Web 2, we're going to have Web 3. All the other ones didn't die, but now it's an opportunity. It's an option. How many people I talk to don't watch like TV anymore because they're on YouTube and they're watching the internet? There's going to be folks like that. I use Web 3 more than I use Web 2. You know, that's just how it's going to be. But radio still exists. It's just now you have a choice, and that will be more for people's everyday lives, not just for like entertainment.
Funny, you reminded me of the song "Video Killed the Radio Star," you know. But yeah, I love freedom, man. You know, I grew up in Boston. They took us on a field trip one day, and we walked on the Freedom Trail, right? It's a red line that they've painted through the city. And, you know, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. My friends, you know, people used to call me Paul Revere back in the day as, you know, it's kind of like a nickname. And it's about, you know, freeing people, right? Like when you can't have access to money, when you can't have access to an ecosystem that other people are involved in, it makes you feel kind of like outside, like you're not important, like it doesn't matter. I was reading the other day, I think it was 2 days ago, that Axie Infinity's game, as you know, as remedial as it was, it's not like amazing tech, you know, the tech, but it was a great game. And there was people in the Philippines and other parts of the world that were able to make a living playing that game at one point. I know. You know, like that's just nuts. You know, we don't realize how far the American dollar goes because, you know, we've been pegging everything to the system for so long. One thing I wanted to ask you too was when you were at Bitcoin Miami, right? What was, you know, one thing I like the Liberland. I don't know if you got into the Liberland guy or if you know much about Liberland, but this is guy Vit, and he's basically created his own space. There was like an unclaimed territory between, I believe it's Siberia and Croatia. And I could be, you know, not exact. I should know exactly, but it's this space in between these two lands, and he found that it was unclaimed territory. And so he moved in, he claimed it, and he's starting to create his own, he wants to create his own country there and he's selling, you know, you're going to get a passport to Liberland, and it's like the free land where we can really use cryptocurrency to the greatest level. On May 23rd, he's going to be in D.C. opening the U.S. Embassy to Liberland, which is actually a pretty big deal. Like there's some senators there, and he invited me there. I'm trying to get to go if I can. I have a really, really busy schedule. It was yesterday, actually, so there you go. It happened already. But I have a super busy schedule. I didn't even know the actual day, but that's going to be some news. I want to see what happens there. But what was your favorite, you know, maybe organization or person that you spoke to, any memorable conversations you had while you were running around Bitcoin Miami? I just want to know kind of what like really sparked your interest.
Gosh, you know, I talked to so many people because it's like the opportunity for all the folks you see online or you communicate with on Twitter or Spaces to like, you know, hang out with them in real life, you know. And as people know, the conference is one thing, but the parties are a whole nother thing. Like when you go to my page, you're going to see more footage from the parties and the events that were surrounding Bitcoin 2023 than even the conference. I did post yesterday a video, which includes you, by the way, of price predictions from the conference of going around asking folks who think Bitcoin's going to 20K first or 30K first. So we'll see how that turns out. But gosh, it's hard to pick one segment of the conference other than just in general. I'm an in real life guy. I love talking to folks in real life. I guess I would want to say my overall takeaway is, like my man Will says, you know, markets go up and markets go down, but crypto in real life is always a vibe. And when you see that many excited folks in the higher quality folks are there during a bear market, you know, those are the builders. Those are the people who are serious. Those are the people with their heads down, the people who really care, the folks that are really trying to make this space advance, rain or shine. That's the folks I want to meet. So for me, the type of person I am, the social type of guy I am, I love interacting with those folks. It wasn't really like one event, if you will. Mm-hmm. It was more about just getting to know as many of the human beings as I could.
No, really, for me, it was like I've watched Garris all the way. I've watched Tom Crown. I've watched all these people, and we've DM'd a little bit. We've had some interactions, but to sit there and get a hug, to sit there and say what up, to sit there and really connect, and then to see them the next night, and then the next night, and then, you know, go to a dinner, or go to an event and laugh and talk. I mean, to me, is amazing, right? I've dedicated myself to just the charts. I haven't had a lot of time to actually get social, and I used to be a social butterfly, you know, you believe in me, but you get focused and it's time to discipline, right? I have a family, I got a job, I got a life, I got to move. And so you realize that you created a new family. Like I've kind of strayed away from the people that I knew when I was kind of living my old life, you know, a lot of people too, just drinking beers, hanging out, just kind of like, you know, the mundane life. And now I'm around these just innovative people like you making songs.
We're like-minded folks, you know, and really in the space.
And it feels like there's a family of us too, you know, Loudmouth, everyone out there just kind of bringing in the vibes and like,
I hope, so for the folks out there who don't follow me, I hope when you see my page, there's a lot of like mini music videos, if you will, where I have songs about the events and I make capture footage from the parties and stuff. I hope you get that feeling because it does feel like family. You know what I mean? It's like my Web3 fam. When we're there and we share ideas. I was just texting Tom Crown before I came on this show. You know what I mean? And you talking about your old life. Can I leave him with a little bit of a teaser? If you guys don't know, your man Crypto Lifer has bars. All right. You might tap into Cassius Cuvée's page. I got a couple videos of my man busting some raps that I'm going to be releasing over the course of this next week. And you're going to be like, Lifer? I didn't know he had it like that. Lifer got it like that. Wait till you see.
Yo, man, thank you so much, man. That means the world to me. I'm kind of I'm blushing right now. I'm blushing.
Wait till y'all see. Y'all are gonna find out.
So when people basically get into cryptocurrency and they first get a little nervous and scared, what can you say to them to relax them, to make them realize that they're not going down a rabbit hole of conspiracy theory? They're not a bunch of tax evading people, right? Like recently we've been labeled as tax evaders, and you know, like even you know the recent administration has been like kind of just putting a pejorative tone on anyone that's into cryptocurrency, you know?
FUD.
What do you
call FUD?
Yeah.
Fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yeah. Explain to that. Explain how to get rid of FUD. Explain how you got in. Did you ever doubt it? Like when you first got in, like, or were you just kind of like, you were just like ready?
So this is, okay, I was on the plane to the Bitcoin conference. I knew one guy. It was the guy who taught that NFT class. He was the one who was going to the conference. I went with him, right? We're on the plane. A brother by the name of Big John from Chicago sat down next to us on our layover. And I knew I was going to write this song. I have an NFT song called Tokenomics, right? But I didn't know what I was going to write about because I was still learning, right? So I took out notes. I had one guy on my left, Big John on my right, and I just wrote like 6 pages of notes about this stuff. And I wrote 2 songs when I was down there. I'm a believer in tokenomics. I even recorded it in the hotel room in between the 2 days of the Bitcoin conference. And it's just kind of breaking down the different stuff I learned at the time. And the one thing he said to me, and I obviously knew about investing and stuff, but he was like this. I wrote in a notes. He's like, and DeFi. I said, what's DeFi? He goes, that stands for decentralized finance. I said, what does that mean? And he goes, you know how we have a centralized banking system? And I went, now I get why you're all scared of all this stuff. This is going to upset the whole entire system, or at least it threatens it by having this option to opt out, this peer-to-peer network, because I understood by that point what a blockchain was. Decentralized finance is in opposition to centralized finance. And I already know how the centralized system affects everything in the world and basically funds both sides of every war, you know, and like you always got to go through somebody squeezing you, going and coming. You pay income taxes, but you also pay taxes when you buy things, right? So you get it both ways. So for me, because I already kind of understood that system, the idea of decentralized finance don't sound so bad, right? So I think that what I like to do when I'm explaining to a new person, because I talk to a lot of people from outside of crypto, I think to start off by explaining to them, highlighting the things that they do already know, right? They do already know that the centralized system isn't like working for them, right? That's not a hard sell, okay? You know, they get that much. So then when you explain to them how there's an alternative, they're a little more receptive to listening to it. I think that's one of the places I usually start, depends on the person.
Amazing, amazing, super insightful. Another thing is kind of cool. It's like they've been giving us ads the last few months, right? With all these banks collapsing,
right? Like they get that.
People that looked at us funny now are like, so that's what Cassius Cuvée was trying to tell me this whole time. You know, now I'm waiting at SV Bank for my balance, and I'm sitting in a line of 300 people scratching my head.
Serious. It's not even an individual, right? So I know a woman, she's in HR for one of the companies, a tech company out here. You know, I'm in the Bay Area, right, guys? So I'm in Silicon Valley's right here. Their company's main banking was at that. She does HR. She's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make payroll. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my
so
gosh.
like that's, you know, if she didn't realize that the banking system was not safe, she does now, you know, you know, so it's like, what, tell me again about Bitcoin, you know, like.
Yeah, the centralized banking system reminds me, I was trying to think of a quick metaphor where you were talking, And that's where the rapping comes from, right? The constant, as rappers, we have to improvise, right? We have to come up with something on the fly. And even when you're writing quick, sometimes the ideas come fast and you just kind of let them out, right? And then you can reorganize them later. But that initial crux, that initial idea really comes out in a spurt usually. And it's like someone sells water, right? And they have a lock on the water, right? Just like Poland Spring or whatever, you know? And then some new company finds another spring and they're like, no, we're selling, you know, Cuvée water now, you know, and they're like, oh, that's dangerous water. Like, that's not clear like our water. That will kill you. You know what I mean? It's like, or when Nikola Tesla came up with alternating current, but direct current was the main one, which made a huge circle. Alternating current, you could go back and forth. Immediately, you could cut out half the wiring, right? So if you go wire a city,
we still use that technology today
to this day. You know what I mean? And they tried to. I remember Thomas Edison was like, you know, shocking puppies and stuff like this. He was trying to teach people like that, like, you know, basically this new age of electricity was going to hurt you or scare you. They do the same thing with the banking system right now. They're doing it today, right? They're trying to scare you with the debt ceiling. They're trying to freak people out. They want people to think, oh, they'll crash the economy to try to scare you out of Bitcoin.
They will.
You know what I mean?
I wouldn't put it past them. So that's why I say we'll see about the debt ceiling thing. Maybe it'll be the time they catch us off guard. But yeah, I wouldn't put anything past them. They'll start a war. They'll start a lockdown. They'll start whatever in order to try to get you to do whatever they want you to do.
Amen, man. Amen.
Let me spit one line for you. When it comes to crypto, I have one of them songs. I go, I'm talking dividends and growth with it. Crypto is both of it. Big banks are mad we're making more than I'm supposed to get.
Yeah, man. I love it. I love it. I love it. You know, there's been there's a few random, not many. There's a few people doing like a little bit of rap, but they're not doing it in the way you're doing it. But your intention is to truly educate, right? Your intention is to take them down the path that you went down, and you're doing an amazing job. So one thing I keep seeing while you're talking, I have the background of the screens. I'm like, you know, the trader guy, but I see you have like this. It looks like something metaverse or like a land or something. What's going on back there?
So
what you got behind
I'm recording live from the metaverse. This is Decentraland. So I actually made NFTs out of my music video. I'm actually the first recording artist to ever make a music video NFT. So I put some of them in the window here in my Decentraland. You'll see it's right on a road. I can't remember off the top of my head the coordinates. I own some land in Decentraland in the metaverse, but these are all spinning and moving when you go in there. This is just a still photo.
But you already have a piece in Decentraland, Mana, right? Mana coin. That's pretty cool, man. That's exciting. So you're already innovating in many, many different ways. Soon you're going to have like a club out there and people can come watch you perform in the metaverse, you know?
Well, we got to broadcast Crypto Lifer from my property. We can do that too.
Oh, I'm definitely jumping on in, man. That's going to be great. I can't wait. That's awesome. I'm going to end this interview, man. It's been amazing. We got people hooked and locked in for at least 40 minutes. I think they're excited to meet you on my channel. I hope more people go and check him out. Tell people where they can find you. Tell people where you can go and just, you know, give it your last, whatever you want to say. It's yours, man. I'm going to be gone for the rest of the time, and you just take the stage, buddy.
Thanks, Crypto Lifer, man. I really appreciate you having me on, man. You're a genuine human being. For folks who watch him, he's who you see on camera. So I definitely want to say that. So I'm Cassius Cuvée, CassiusCuvee. That's my name on all social channels. It's my YouTube channel. On my channel in YouTube, I have a show called Poppin' Crypto with Cassius Cuvée, where I bring on the founders and CEOs of Web3 projects, and I spit a custom rap song about their project before I do the interview. Very detailed. This year, I've been doing music videos about their project, so you're going to see some of those on there as well. So that's the main things. My YouTube channel. Also follow me on Twitter, and you're always going to get like a piece of art usually when I do my video posts.
God bless you, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, and we're definitely going to have you back on in some way, shape, or form. And I'm excited for our relationship to see where me and you go, and to see where you go. And I'm going to watch you, and I'm always intently waiting for your next tweet or something that's coming up, because I never know what hotline you're going to spit, man. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Crypto Lifer. I really appreciate it, man.